بسم الله. طيب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله وحده والصلاة والسلام على من لا نبي بعده وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بسنته إلى يوم الدين وسلم تسليما كثيرا. أما بعد. As we continue the explanation of this great treatise entitled Hamawiyyah, or it's called Fataawa al-Hamawiyyah al-Kubra, by the great Imam Taqiyuddin Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim ibn Abdul Salam ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani al-Dimishqi, the one who died 728 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. As he continues in elaborating the correct creed of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, of those who are the people who holds on to the Sunnah, and those who are upon the understanding of the first Jama'ah, who are the Sahaba. And that's the meaning of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. The people who are holding on to the Sunnah, and the people who are holding on to the understanding of the first Jama'ah, Al-Jama'atul Ula, who are the Sahaba. So that's why it's called Jama'ah. Because a lot of people don't know, why is it called Jama'ah? You'll find that some of them interpret it as the united body, which is incorrect. It's not the united body of the Muslims. That's not the meaning of Jama'ah. The meaning of Jama'ah is the first Jama'ah who are the Sahaba. Meaning the people who hold on to the correct understanding of Islam in accordance to how they understood the religion. Especially in the affairs connected with creed. Especially in the affairs connected with belief in creed. For those who hold on to their understanding, it's called Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, you'll notice in this book that he mentioned different creeds from great A'imma, respected, revered A'imma. From them was Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, where his name was Nu'man ibn Thabit. That was his real name, Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah. You'll find that his real name is Nu'man ibn Thabit. We were speaking about his Aqidah. You'll find that Shaykh al-Islam used this as an argument in order to establish against those who so-called claim that they follow Abu Hanifa in his madhab, even though it's binding upon them to follow him in his creed, because that's more important than following him in fiqh. What's more important is that you follow him in his Aqidah, because that's what made him a great Imam in the first place. Not the affairs of fiqh only. Rather, if he wasn't great in Aqidah, he would not be great in fiqh. Nor would he be recognized as a great scholar of fiqh if he was from those who deviated the affairs of creed. So Shaykh al-Islam used this as a hujjah against those who so-called claim they're upon the madhab al-Hanafi, to say, if this is your claim, that you ascribe to this great scholar, this is his belief, right here. So we'll continue, as he says, rahimahullah. So Shaykh al-Islam is bringing the belief of Abu Hanifa, Nu'man ibn Thabit, rahimahullah, where he says, so let's continue. ففي هذا الكلام المشهور عن أبي حنيفة عند أصحابه أنه كفر الواقف الذي يقول لا أعرف ربي في السماء أم في الأرض، فكيف يكون الجاحد النافي الذي يقول ليس في السماء أو ليس في الأرض ولا في السماء، واحتج على كفره بقوله تعالى الرحمن على العرش استوى قال وعرشه فوق 7 سماوات, as he says. طيب, Abu Hanifa, Shaykh al-Islam, is conveying what he says in his creed. He said, what is في الكلام المشهور, what is known, famous speech or famous statements that have been conveyed upon Abu Hanifa with his companions. With his companions. From them is Muhammad ibn Hasan al-Shaybani, from the great students of those who conveyed the fiqh of Imam Abu Hanifa, Muhammad ibn Hasan al-Shaybani. And others that we'll talk about in a minute, inshallah. But he says, Annahu, now listen, they said, Abu Hanifa declared a disbeliever for the one who merely stops What does he mean stop? Meaning he's hesitant or he's doubtful. Kafar al-waqif, meaning the person that tries to play the so-called neutral role. Now listen what he says. Al-kafar al-waqif, the one who's reluctant and stops and he says, I don't know, my Lord, of being above the heavens or within the earth. So that's the person that basically saying, well, I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know. So that's the person that's considered waqif. Like, I don't know if he's in the heavens. I don't know if he's in the earth. I really don't know where he is. So that seems like a person that's what? Reluctant. He's trying to play a balanced type of position. I want to be not too far to the right, nor too far to the left. So he's saying here that he declared that individual to still be what? Generally out the fold of Islam. He says, the one that says, La a'rifu Rabbi fi sama. I don't know my Lord above the heavens nor in the earth. Now listen to what Abu Hanifa goes on to say. For how much more so than a person who frankly negates that Allah is above the heavens. If Abu Hanifa declared to be outside the fold of Islam generally, the one who's reluctant and the one who's doubtful, and so I'm not going to say Allah is in the heavens, I'm not going to say Allah is in the earth, I don't really know. If he's declaring that individual, what about the one who frankly negates it? And say, no, Allah is not above the heavens, nor is he above in the earth, he's nowhere. What about that individual? What do you think that his position will be in regards to that person this is his state? Is it clear what I'm saying, everyone? So that's what you'll find that Shaykh al-Islam is saying here. He said, what about the person who frankly negates it? Just saying, no, I'm not saying Allah is anywhere. He's not above the heavens. He's not anywhere. He's not in the earth. He's not above the heavens. He's not. I'm saying it frankly. That's what he's trying to say. If this is the case and the person is reluctant, what about the person who's frank in their negation? Is it clear? طيب. So you'll find that he mentions it says, يقول ليس في السماء أو ليس في الأرض. Allah is not above the heavens, nor is he in the earth. ولا في السماء. He's not above the heavens. Then you'll find Abu Hanifa used as an evidence upon his disbelief by the statement of Allah, the most merciful above the throne ascended. So Abu Hanifa used a dalil. This ayah, which is the Surah Al-Taha, ayah number 5. Ar-Rahman ala al-Arsh istawa. That the most merciful above the throne ascended. So he says that person is negating that. The person that's reluctant and the person who frankly negates is even worse, like we mentioned. قال وعرشه فوق سبع سماوات. So then Abu Hanifa said, Allah's throne is above the 7 heavens. Allah's throne is above the 7 heavens. So if you look at the ayah, Surah Al-Taha, ayah number 5, the most merciful above the throne ascended, right everyone? Then person has to ask, if a person comes to you says right now, because there's still a lot of people out there that are negators in regards to Allah above them, or Allah's loftiness above the creation, or highness above the creation, right? So you'll say, the first thing they'll say to you, I knew what ayah you're about to say, Ar-Rahmanu ala al-Arsh istawa, right? طيب. They'll say the most merciful above the throne ascended. What you should say to them is, where's the throne? Before we get, because we know Allah Ta'ala, we the Sunnah believe that. But I want to ask you, where's the throne? Allah said that the throne is above. Where's this throne? Do you believe it is above? No. Alright, where is it then? They can't answer you. And if they do answer you, they'll answer you in a manner that is what? Totally in opposition against the religion, to show and manifest their what? Tanaqud. To manifest their what? Manifest their contradiction and their affairs that they what? Contradict themselves in. Is it clear? So they'll try to say, alright, in regards to the throne, stop, where's the throne? Allah's not above. Let's leave that to the side for a second. Where's the throne? Allah's not above. That's all they're going to do. Because they know they're wrong. Allah's not above. Where's the throne? Allah's not above. Where's the throne? Answer my question. They can. Because they know if they answer it, what? Done. So they have to play games to what? As they say, يُدَّدِّنُونَ حَوْلَ الْقَضِيَّةِ. They're going to try to come with words and games to go around the what? Around the affair. To play around. So that's what he's mentioning here. So you'll find Abu Hanifa, that's why he said clearly in Hamawiyyah, he said, his throne is above 7 heavens. That's the throne. That's why he mentioned it. That's why he used this as an evidence for the one who just merely reluctant in the belief that Allah is above, that person is declared to be what? Outside the fold of Islam. Generally. Why am I saying generally so much? Why am I putting emphasis on the word generally? Because it's kind of rhetorical. But in regards to why everyone, because you'll find that the person that I say generally is the general ruling for that is what Abu Hanifa said. But specifically, meaning that this ruling applies on a specific individual. You understand? So there's a difference between the general ruling that's mentioned in these books and applying the specific ruling upon a person. Whereas they would be considered out the fold of Islam if it's applied to them. And the proofs and evidences are established against them. Always differ between the two affairs, or else you will fall into takfir. There's a lot of books you'll find that the ulama that says, whoever does this, indeed they have disbelieved, the major disbelief, they're generalizing the ruling. Is it clear, everyone? For example, whoever makes dua to other than Allah has nullified their Islam. No doubt. Whoever raises their hands and calls on someone other than Allah, that's a what? That is a nullifier. That's a nullifier of Islam. Tayyib. What about the person who's been deceived and misled in the certain lands by evil scholars that have affected their aqidah to make them fall into that type of disbelief? That's why we say they're excused due to what? Due to a shubha, due to a doubtful matter or ambiguity that now allows them to attain a barrier that will hold us back from declaring them to be out the fold of Islam. That's why they call it for takfir, لابد من استيفاء الشروط وانتفاء ايش؟ الموانع. We have to fulfill the conditions of takfir by what? Fulfillment of the conditions and removing the barriers that might be a reason for them being excused even though they fell into this type of kufr. And some of it, like we said, from those barriers are evil scholars that have what? Deceived them and misguided them. Is it clear? So that's the reason why I say, if you notice I keep putting emphasis on my statements when I say, we say that this person is outside the fold of Islam generally. So now you understand why I say that. Is it clear? G. So even in the books that you read at home, because a lot of people will open a book, Ibn al-Qayyim said, whoever this is, he's a kafir. I know, you will find that in your books in your libraries. It's there. That's a general ruling. You understand? General. It's the difference between the general ruling and what, everyone? Specifying an individual by their ruling. Or applying that ruling specifically to a person. When you now do it specifically, you have to fulfill what they call two affairs. Number one, istifa al-shurut, fulfilling the conditions of takfir and removing the barriers that keeps them from what being removed out the fold of Islam, and from them is, like we said, the evil influence or the corrupt influences of certain scholars that have what? Misguided them and misled them and corrupted their belief. Is it clear? G. So let's keep going. So Abu Hanifa goes on to say, وَبَيَّنَ بِهَذَا أَنَّ قَوْلَهُ تَعَالَى الرَّحْمَنُ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ اسْتَوَى يُبَيِّنُ أَنَّ اللَّهَ فَوْقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ فَوْقَ الْعَرْشِ وأن الاستواء على العرش دل على أن الله نفسه فوق العرش ثم أردف ذلك بتكفير من قال إنه على العرش استوى ولكن توقف في كون العرش في السماء أم في الأرض قال لأنه أنكر أنه في السماء. He's saying exactly what we just said a couple of minutes ago. He says, for that, he said he clarified, Abu Hanifa, by the statement or the verse that we just mentioned, that the most merciful above the throne ascended, clarifying that Allah is above the heavens and above the throne. Allah is above the heavens and Allah is above the throne. And that the ascension, وَأَنَّ الْإِسْتِوَاء, the ascension is above the throne. It indicates that Allah, He Himself is above the throne. Then Abu Hanifa, he adds, in addition to that, as we just mentioned, the removal of one out of the fold of Islam by them saying, verily Allah, man qala innahu ala al-arsh istawa. He said, for example, that Allah is above the throne, or above the throne, He ascended, right? He says, however, He's reluctant. He's reluctant by saying that the throne is above the heavens. He's reluctant. Now, I'm not going to say that the throne is above the heavens, nor am I going to say it's in the earth either. He said that that individual also has what? Fell into this type of disbelief. Qal. Why? Because he denied that Allah is above the heavens. Because that's what he's trying to what? Flee away from. So by him denying that the Arsh is above the heavens, in actuality, what is he denying? Everyone? This is not rhetorical. That Allah is not above. So that's what they're trying to flee away from. So if they negate it, then in actuality, they're trying to flee away from the affair that we just established, that Allah Ta'ala is above. So he goes on to say, rahimahullah. He said, this individual has denied that Allah is above, because Allah is fi a'la illiyin. He's in the highest of high. He's in the highest of the high, meaning above everything. And He's in the highest above the throne and above His creation. And Allah is invoked, meaning He's called upon, whereas He's above His slaves. And He is not invoked from below, meaning that Him being believed that He's what? Mixed with the creation or in the ground or under the creation. And he said that this is what? Frank. You'll find that Abu Hanifa said this statement. So you'll find that those who have been affected in their creed by the denial that Allah is above, you'll find that Abu Hanifa is frank about his position in regards to the person denying that Allah is above. You see it clearly. So those who so-called follow the madhab al-Hanafi, this is the statement of the scholar that you revere and you respect and you hold in high esteem, declaring that just merely the individual who's doubtful in that affair, that the one who's doubtful in that matter, that the general ruling that he mentioned concerning him is what? Out the fold of Islam. So this is the Imam that they what? So-called revere, especially in regards to those who are upon the Maturidi, those who follow the Maturidiyah, or upon the belief of the Maturidiyah. That they follow the individual named Abu Mansur al-Maturidi. Abu Mansur al-Maturidi. You'll find that a lot of them who are upon that way or that belief, they ascribe themselves to the fiqh of Abu Hanifa. So this statement here, you'll find, as we said, is ascribed to Abu Hanifa, where Shaykh al-Islam conveyed it, clarifying that the one who believes that Allah is not above, that Abu Hanifa just merely in the individual who's reluctant in that affair, who's waqif, the one who does not really frankly state their position, that he declared them to be what? That person, he's declared to be out the fold of Islam because of that denial, and he's denying a verse in the book of Allah, which is the ayat that we mentioned in Surah Al-Taha, ayat number 5. Is it clear, everyone? Jayyid. So let's keep mentioning what Abu Hanifa or Shaykh al-Islam conveys with the statement of Abu Hanifa rahimahullah. He says, وهذا تصريح من أبي حنيفة بتكفير من أنكر أن يكون الله في السماء واحتج على ذلك بأن الله تعالى في أعلى عليين وأنه يدعى من أعلى لا من أسفل وكل من هاتين الحجتين فطرية عقلية فإن القلوب مفطورة على الإقرار بِأَنَّ اللَّهَ فِي الْعُلُوِّ. Allahu Akbar. He says, you'll find that this is frank from Abu Hanifa, of declaring a disbeliever from the one who denies that Allah is above the heavens. Allahu Akbar. You hear it clearly. هذا تصريح frank. Abu Hanifa has established that the individual generally is out the fold of Islam for the one who denies that Allah is above the heavens. Is it clear, everyone? And he says he used as an evidence upon that Allah is in the highest of high. في أعلى عليين. He's in the highest of high. And that he is invoked whereas he is above his slaves. And he's not invoked with the belief that he's under or below. Nobody believes when they prostrate or make sujood and salat that Allah is under them. Or Allah is below, mixed within the creation. وَالْعِيَاذُ وَكُلٌّ مِّنْ هَاتَيْنِ الْحُجَّتَيْنِ. He says, in all of these two proofs and evidences, he says, and what is the proof and evidence he's bringing here? Shaykh al-Islam conveying upon Abu Hanifa. He's not talking about just only the kitab, the sunnah, the consensus of the companions. He's talking about two other proofs of affirmation that Allah is above. He's talking about, number one, he already established the origin, which is the book of Allah, the sunnah, the message of Allah, and the consensus of the companions. Right, everyone? He's bringing two other evidences. What is he talking about? He says all of these two proofs here are fitriya aqliya. They're natural inclination and disposition, and it also agrees with the intellect, meaning with the sound intellect that has not been tampered with Greek philosophy. That has not been what? Altered or distorted by Greek philosophy. Because the belief that Allah is not above and the evidences that they use to so-called deny it is due to the misuse of their intellect in its improper place, due to the fact that they gave precedence to their minds over revelation. Whereas the proper usage of your intellect is to give precedence to revelation over your mind. And to make the revelation, and to make your mind submissive to the revelation. Not to make the revelation submissive to your mind. Is it clear? Is it clear, everyone? Jay. So that's what you'll find that he's mentioning here. He says, وَكُلُّ مِنْ هَاتَيْنِ الْحُجَّتَيْنِ فِطْرِيَّةً عَقْلِيَّةً. He said, now listen to this part. The hearts have been naturally created, maftura, upon the belief and the conviction that Allah is what? Above. So, every human being, when he comes out of the womb of their mother, and when he is born, every human being believes, naturally. Even if they were left alone, any human being, if they were left alone, they were in a remote place, or wherever place it is, you don't have to necessarily be remote, meaning far. If they were left alone, and they were not exposed to any outside corrupt influences of this world, or beliefs of this world, or corrupt ideologies of this world, and the baby was left alone in that land, or in that place, properly developed without any influences of the outside world, meaning the corrupt, evil influences, they will automatically, instinctively believe that Allah exists, that Allah deserves to be worshipped, and they would direct their worship naturally to what is above them. Is it clear? Naturally. Their heart will be inclined to something above them. Naturally. If they have not been altered, or their belief has not been distorted or altered by the outside corrupt influences of this world. Is it clear, everyone? Can you repeat that one more time? No problem. If the baby or a natural human being was born, what's the proof of that? The proof of that goes back to the hadith which is in Bukhari and Muslim, and the Messenger of Allah said, كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى فِطْرَةٍ. Every newborn is born upon the fitrah. Meaning, what's the meaning of the fitrah? Meaning they naturally already know that Allah exists. They know that Allah deserves to be worshipped. And part of the fitrah is directed to your worship to what is above you. Your heart will be inclined to what's above you. Meaning, your Lord. Naturally. If the baby was not influenced by the corrupt ideologies and beliefs of this world. If the corrupt ideologies come, of course it's going to alter it. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, what does he said? The Prophet ﷺ mentioned the outside corruption in the hadith, same hadith. وَلَكِنْ أَبَوَاهُ يُهَوِّدَانِهِ أَوْ يُنَصِّرَانِهِ أَوْ يُمَجِّسَانِهِ. So it says it clearly. However, so the Messenger of Allah mentioned the outside influences, the corrupt influence. What did he say? However, his parents either make him a Jew, Christian, or a fire worshiper, or an idol worshiper. So the Messenger of Allah mentioned and said, those are the outside corrupt influences. The outside corrupt, then he come in, alters the fitrah. What's the fitrah? Allah naturally exists, He deserves to be worshipped, and that you will naturally be inclined towards what is above you for that deity that deserves to be worshipped. Is it clear? طيب. So he goes on to say, فإن القلوب مفطورة على الإقرار والعبادة. وقد جاء اللفظ الآخر صريحا عنه بذلك فقال إذا أنكر أنه في السماء فقد كفر. Clear. Abu Hanifa, he said. He said, there's another statement frank upon Abu Hanifa with that same matter that we just mentioned. He said, إِذَا أَنْكَرَ أَنَّهُ فِي السَّمَاءِ. If he denies that Allah is above, indeed he has disbelieved. Indeed. Is it clear, everyone? So this is to clarify, brothers and sisters, is Hamawiyyah hard to understand? Everybody keeps complaining, oh, it's over above the heads of the people. Nobody understands what you're talking about. As far as I can see, even the brothers in front of me and the sisters who's listening online and brothers, everyone tells me the way it's being broke down is what? It's clear as the sun in the sky. In addition to that, brothers and sisters, when are we going to keep challenging ourselves to go higher and higher? Certain people out there, alhamdulillah, we need to cater towards those who embrace Islam, no doubt. But we have to also cater towards those who are a little bit further in their studies. So we cater towards every level, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Even though I think Hamawiyyah still could be understood, even by the basic or Muslim who comes. Even if they was to listen to the explanation, and if it was done properly, they could understand it. طيب, so let's keep going. طيب, so you'll find that this mas'ala, you'll find that the great Imam Muhammad al-Jami, the Imam, he said in regards to the belief that Allah Ta'ala is above, we say it in a manner, of course, and we believe, and we are not reluctant to point towards the heavens. Due to the fact that the greatest of all prophets and messengers pointed towards the heavens during the Hajjat al-Wada', where he gave the great advice to the Ummah. And he said, indeed, وَقَدْ تَرَكْتُ فِيكُمْ مَا إِن تَمَسَّكْتُمْ بِهِ لَن تَضِلُّوا بَعْدِي أَوْ إِنْ اعْتَصَبْتُمْ بِهِ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَسُنَّتِي. As we know, the Messenger of Allah said in that farewell pilgrimage, the first and only Hajj of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu. As we know, the Messenger of Allah only made Hajj. How many times, everyone? One. That's it. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ made Hajj one time. That was his first and last pilgrimage. And he said in that farewell pilgrimage, important advice that he gave to the Muslims. And he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, indeed, I have left amongst you that if you hold tight and firm to it, you will never go astray. It is the book of Allah and my sunnah. Then the Messenger of Allah said in that same speech, that great speech, alayhi salatu wasalam, وَأَنْتُمْ تُسْأَلُونَ عَنِّي فَمَا أَنْتُمْ قَائِلُونَ. You will be asked about me on the day of resurrection. When you meet Allah. And the Messenger of Allah is also addressing us, meaning the people who is considered from his followers after, in the later times, all the way up to the day of resurrection. This same statement applies to us. You will be asked concerning me. The Messenger of Allah said, what will you say on the day of resurrection? Now listen what the companions mentioned and said. We testify. قَدْ بَلَّغْتْ وَأَدَّيْتْ وَنَصَحْتْ. We testify that you conveyed the message, you informed it, you informed us of it, and you advised us. You conveyed it, you carried it out, you fulfilled your mission, and you advised us. You advised us for what will bring us close to Allah, and you advised us for what will bring us close to Allah in paradise, and you advised us of what will bring us close to the devil and to the hellfire. You made it clear. And we also what? Testify along with the Sahaba in that regard. So the Messenger of Allah when they gave that answer, رَفَعَ إِصْبَعُهُ الشَّرِيفَ السَّبَّابَ تُجَاهَ السَّمَاءِ. The Messenger of Allah pointed his what? Index finger towards the heavens, based upon the belief of the Asha'ira that necessitates that the Messenger of Allah found the kufr. Because that's what the Asha'ira believe. If you point towards the heavens and you believe that Allah is above, you have left the fold of Islam, they say. And if you point towards the heavens, not believing Allah is above the heavens, you're a fasiq. And your finger needs to be chopped off. Tayyib, we have the greatest of all prophets and messengers doing this. Does that mean that the Messenger of Allah left the fold of Islam? All this is nonsense. Absolute pure nonsense. The Messenger of Allah pointed towards the heavens. In addition, that this affair of the farewell pilgrimage reached the level of tawatur. It's reached the level of, because you know that another thing they'll say, oh, it hasn't reached the level of tawatur. That's another nonsense. This was during the farewell pilgrimage. How many Sahaba do you think were there? Thousands seen it. If that's not tawatur, then what is? Thousands of Sahaba saw the Messenger of Allah do it. Thousands. They said that he what? Took his index finger, pointing up towards the heavens, and he said 3 times, Allahumma shahad, thalatha marrat. Allahumma shahad, Allahumma shahad, Allahumma shahad. Oh Allah, bear witness. Oh Allah, bear witness. Oh Allah, bear witness. So, based upon the nonsense the Asha'ira believe, that is in opposition to this great narration during this great time, during this great speech that the Messenger of Allah delivered, whereas he was what? Giving advice to the Muslims before he died. As we know later on, after that moment in time, the Messenger of Allah passed away, alayhi salatu wasalam. Tayyib. You'll find that we mentioned it said, based upon the statements, in addition to that, the hadith of the Jariyah. So we have the Hajjat al-Wada', the farewell pilgrimage, in addition to the concubine. The concubine who the Messenger of Allah said in the narration clearly, frankly, hadith Abu Muawiyah al-Hakam Abu Muawiyah ibn al-Hakam al-Sulami. Alhamdulillah, I can't remember. Abu Muawiyah ibn al-Hakam al-Sulami. Oh, I'm about to stop soon. The hadith of Abu Muawiyah ibn al-Hakam al-Sulami, the hadith of the concubine. The Messenger of Allah was frank in his question. He said, where is Allah? Where? Aina. Because you'll find that what? The Asha'ira also believe it's not permissible to ask that question. It's not permissible to say Aina Allah. Tayyib, the Messenger of Allah fell into something impermissible concerning the greatest of all knowledge. The greatest of all knowledge, which is concerning our Lord himself, of where he is, which is the most greatest of all knowledge. Where is our Creator? So the Messenger of Allah, based upon the statement of the Asha'ira, the Messenger of Allah asked a question that is not befitting. He shouldn't have asked that, based upon their so-called evil minds. Based upon that, we say that the Messenger of Allah clearly said, where is Allah? Ain Allah. Based upon that, as we know, the Messenger of Allah was what, everyone? Testing her. He was not is you'll find trying to teach her Aqidah within 5 minutes. What do I mean by that? You'll find that from the most silliest of nonsense that I've heard from these days is saying that you can learn Aqidah in less than 10 minutes. It's not that important. You don't have to give great importance to the affairs concerning Aqidah. Because the Messenger of Allah ﷺ taught the female Jariyah and established her Iman being complete in less than what? Less than 10 or 5 minutes, where he asked one simple question: where is Allah? First of all, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was not teaching her. She already knew. He was just merely what? Testing her. That's the refutation. The maqam here was testing because she already knew it. So the Messenger of Allah wasn't teaching. He was what? Testing. So when you test someone, you what? Ask a simple question. Has nothing to do with trying to learn Aqidah in less than 10 or 5 minutes, based upon what Hamzah Yusuf mentions. Because he said this nonsense. Hamzah Yusuf saying, oh, you can learn Aqidah in less than 10 or 5 minutes. Look at the hadith of the Jariyah. Now, this idiot not realizing that what? That the hadith is against you. Because the hadith is merely speaking about what? Testing, not teaching. Because why? She already knew the answer. That's why the Messenger of Allah, as a result of it, said what? Free her, because she's what? A believer. Because she already got the knowledge. Is it clear, everyone? Jayyid. So that's what you'll find in this regard about those two narrations. And we'll stop here and continue tomorrow. So I'm going to make it too long. Any questions about the lesson? Any questions about the lesson? Anyone? Anything that needs clarity or more clarity? Gee, we'll stop here, inshallah. We'll continue tomorrow. If it rains, we'll still have class. I think it's supposed to be expected, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll still be here, inshallah. We'll continue class tomorrow.
It's not really about the class.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's not really about the class, but it's with the general and specific. How the Prophet's prayer prescribed. I always mention how some scholars are under the opinion that for those who abandon the prayer, then they disbelieve. Because you will get some people that will get the general thought of, even if a Muslim miss a prayer, then they fall outside the fold. And
even if they pray? Outside the fold of Islam, even if they pray?
That's what I was saying, but intentionally, like if they just miss one prayer, two prayers, intentionally. But I would just go into how they just fall into major sin.
No. Follow. No, go ahead. Keep answering.
No, I'm gonna let you go ahead and speak on this shit.
In regards to the person that raises the prayer, number one, like we said, still the affair of Iqamat al-Hujjah, establishing the proof and evidences, still has to be what? Established. Regardless. If the person has the i'tiqad, if they have the belief that the obligatory prayer does not have to be performed, of course we know that's a belief of kufr, no doubt. At the same time, you still have to what? Establish the proof. You still have to mention it, you still have to be patient. Do not hasten towards takfir for a Muslim who believes in Islam being the truth. If they're ignorant, they just embraced Islam, or maybe perhaps they might have took shahada, but they didn't start practicing till later. Because those are all probabilities. Being the case, do not hasten towards takfir. Establish the proof, teach them the evidences and proofs that the 5 obligatory prayers have to be performed in its proper time to the end of it. In regards to the person who abandons the prayer, or certain prayers they perform and other prayers they leave off, they're a fasiq. They're a sinner, they're a major sinner. They're not considered a kafir. They're considered a major sinner, fasiq. Even though that is considered a affair that renders one in a state of fisq, you still have to what? Still have to establish the proof and evidences. You keep reminding them and keep what? Teaching them. But course, to the person that now fulfills the obligations, that's clear. But in regards to that person, like we said, that is now negligent, that's a matter that we'll talk about later. But the ulama are in agreement on both sides. The ittifaq is that the person denies the obligation, that it will remove you out the fold of Islam. That's by ittifaq. That's by ittifaq. That's an agreement of everyone. If they deny that the 5 prayers are obligatory, that will nullify Islam, that belief. That's an agreement. As far as the one who abandons it out of negligence or being lax or lackadaisical, that's another affair. Whether or not that person is considered in the fold of Islam or outside the fold of Islam. However, now listen to this part. Both sides, even though one is saying they're out the fold of Islam who leaves off the prayer totally, right? Or the person that said that they're lax, they both agree unanimously. Even those who say that the person is still in the fold of Islam, even though they abandoned the prayer, because they haven't changed their belief, that person will receive a great punishment in the hereafter. Even a person could be in the hellfire, as we know, if they don't pay zakat, with a punishment of what we understand of 50,000 years. What about the person who's negligent in prayer? What do you think they will receive? That's in regards to the person that they believe that they're still in the fold of Islam, even though they abandoned the prayer totally. Even if you study their statements, they still believe that individual is in a very dangerous state. So don't try to use that to say, oh, you see, they say you're not a kafir, you're still in the fold of Islam. No, read their evidences and contemplate on it, because they mention clearly you're still in a very dangerous state. Because if the person who does not pay zakat can receive a punishment that is what we understand in this world 50,000 years, what about the person who leaves off the prayer? What do you think they'll get in the hereafter? What do you think? So whether or not you say, well, this person's out the fold of Islam, or this person, no, this side says no, this other side says otherwise, they both agree whether or not that individual is both sides agree that individual is still in a what? Extremely dangerous state. Whether you say kafir, this is done. But even those who say that they still are in the fold of Islam, they still mention that the danger of it. How you could be in the hellfire for something that could be equivalent of what we understand is dunya of 50,000 years, and that's considered temporary before you're brought out of the hellfire. Wal-'iyadhu billah. So does anyone want to play games like that? Don't play games with your prayers. Okay, everyone? We'll stop here. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.